My name is Mark Brenner. Today I want to tell you my story about how the person I trusted most planned her exit long before she walked away. Before we begin, please subscribe to the channel and comment below where you're watching from. I was standing in the kitchen of our Cedarville apartment staring at my phone around midnight on a late weekday. The text message was short. "I'm not coming back. I've met someone better. Your stuff's in storage." Attached was a screenshot. A $118,000 transfer from our joint savings to her personal account. That was it. Over a decade together ended in 2 lines and a bank slip. My wife, Erica, was supposed to be on the 4th day of a girls' retreat in Clearwater Hills. Instead, she was executing a plan that clearly hadn't been made overnight. There had been signs, weekend trips that stretched too long, new outfits that never made it past our door, quiet whispers on phone calls that died when I walked in. I saw it all. I'm a financial investigator. It's my job to notice what doesn't add up. Still, I said nothing. Maybe that was my mistake. Or maybe it was marrying someone who never understood or cared about what I really did. I walked to my desk and opened an email account she never knew I had. 3 alerts blinked from my bank's security system. Someone had tried changing passwords on accounts she'd never even seen. Erica was being careful. I almost admired it. I typed 2 words in reply. "Do what you have to." Then I made a call. "Brian," I said when my cousin picked up. "Remember that backup plan we came up with years back?" "It's time?" he asked. She played her hand. I hung up and glanced at the only framed photo still hanging, a ceremony snapshot of us on our wedding day. I should have seen this coming. I met Erica Hall at a reunion mixer for Northern Plains University. I was 38 and fresh out of a brief first marriage, completely accused on growing my private practice. She was 34, confident, energetic, and never once pretended to care about the details of my work. "You do what you do," she used to say. "Just keep us living well." Within a year, we were married. I funded her dream, a wellness center of her own. Paid for the startup, signed off on upgrades, bought the cars, agreed to the vacations. Anything she asked for, I made happen. I remembered something my uncle once said as we fixed his deck. "Your wife's spending a lot of your money, Mark. Just make sure she respects how hard you work for it." At the time, I brushed it off, but the words stayed with me. 6 years into the marriage, I started moving pieces behind the scenes. Nothing shady, just smart. I created 2 LLCs, built a trust, dabbled in crypto, and set up offshore accounts for international clients. Erica only ever saw the basic checking and savings. As she became more involved with her wellness crowd and grew her following on Social Glow, the trips grew longer. "You wouldn't enjoy it," she'd say. "Just yoga and juice talks." Earlier that winter, she forgot my birthday. When I brought it up the next day, she handed me a luxury timepiece and said she'd been busy with studio expansion. I accepted the gift. That night, I finalized the legal side of my contingency plan. The signs had been there, I just hadn't wanted to face them. The next morning, I made coffee like always. Routine doesn't vanish overnight. I logged into my private financial system, something I'd built myself and tailored for personal use, and with a few clicks, activated the emergency sequence Brian and I had created. First, I froze all joint assets and corporate expense cards. Then, I raised a fraud alert on that $118,000 transfer through some trusted contacts in the banking world. I pulled up the documentation, forwarded everything to my attorney, and gave instructions to file for divorce. Then I called my mother. "She's gone," I said simply. "Took the money and moved my stuff out while on vacation." She was quiet for a few seconds. "I'm sorry, Mark," she said finally. "But I'm not surprised." "What now?" "What I've been preparing for," I told her. "I protect what's mine." An hour later, Erica's name flashed on my phone. I declined. She called 10 more times before sending a message. "What the hell did you do? The money's gone. My cards don't work." I didn't reply. Instead, I drove to the storage unit she mentioned in the message. Using the code she'd sent, I found a duffel bag with essentials, just a few clothes and my laptop. Everything else? Gone. No childhood photo album, no books, no pocket knife from my uncle. Nothing that actually meant anything. That's when it stopped being about money. It became about someone thinking they could wipe me from my own life. I stopped at a cafe nearby and opened my laptop. As a licensed investigator, I had access to certain financial search tools that the public didn't. I started digging into Aiden Cole, the fitness influencer Erica had been tagging for months. The better person she'd chosen. What I uncovered made everything snap into place. I dug deeper into Aiden Cole, the fitness influencer Erica had been tagging nonstop. Her better choice. What I found didn't surprise me, but it still hit hard. His gym business, Cole Performance Studio, was barely holding together. 3 business cards were maxed out. He was behind on a commercial lease, and 2 months ago, Erica had co-signed a car loan for him. I closed my laptop and checked into a hotel. For the first time in a long while, my thoughts were crystal clear. No rage, just a mission. Early in the week, I walked into my downtown suite like it was any other Monday. My assistant Monica blinked in surprise. "Mark, I thought you'd be taking time off. Erica called here 3 times already." "Did she?" I asked. "She said there was some mix-up with your bank accounts. Said it was urgent." I nodded. "Next time she calls, tell her to speak with my attorney. By noon." It didn't take long for her to escalate. The front desk buzzed my line. "Your wife's here, very insistent." I sighed and headed to the reception area. There she was, carefully styled yoga clothes, branded shades perched on her head. She smirked like nothing was wrong. "Mark," she said, deliberately loud, "there's been a huge misunderstanding. The bank froze everything." "Not a mistake," I answered quietly. "You made an unauthorized transfer. They flagged it as fraud." Her smirk twitched. "It was a joint account," she said sharply. "I'm your wife." "You were," I corrected. "Now you're someone who emptied our savings and announced she'd moved on. That's financial misconduct." Her voice dropped, trembling with panic. "You can't do this. I've already signed up for a new place. I've made commitments with Aiden." "I'm aware," I replied. Her face was drained of color. "You're investigating me?" "No, I'm protecting myself." She stepped closer, hissing now. "I'll fight this. I deserve half of everything." I looked at her calmly. "Half of what you know about?" "Sure, but that's not all there is." She blinked. "What do you mean?" "You'll learn during the process." I turned and left her standing there. That afternoon, her new lawyer emailed, demanding access to my financials and threatening to go public about irregularities in my practice. It was an empty bluff. I forwarded it to my attorney with one line: "Proceed as planned." By nightfall, the damage control had begun. Erica rallied mutual friends. My phone lit up with messages accusing me of being cold, controlling, vindictive. Nobody asked where she'd been for a week. Nobody asked about the money. I ignored the noise and hit the gym. Not her fancy studio or Aiden's flashy space, just the quiet, unbranded community center I'd always gone to. I lifted weights until my arms burned, then headed back to the hotel. The trap was tightening, just not around me. 3 days later, my attorney called. "We found something," she said. "She's been draining your joint account for over a year. Small transfers at first, then bigger, nearly $80,000. "Where'd it go?" I asked, though I already knew. "Some into her personal savings, most to a business account under Aiden's name." So she hadn't just walked away. She'd been quietly funding his failing business while planning her escape. That stung more than I'd expected. Later that night, I got a text from an unknown number. "Back off. Erica deserves better. Don't make this worse." Aiden had just entered the ring.
The next morning, I drove to Brian's place. My cousin worked in digital security, an ideal match for someone in my line of work. We'd teamed up before, but this was personal. I need everything on Cole Performance Studio, I told him. Loans, applications, paper trails. Brian gave me a look. We're staying legal, right? Always. We're just quicker at connecting the dots. 3 hours later, the truth was on screen. Aiden was worse off than I thought. His social media shouted success, but the real numbers told a different story. The gym expansion, events, gear, all funded by risky loans and recently Erica's cash. But one file stood out. "Check this out," Brian said, tapping the screen. "Loan application, 4 months ago. Used his gym equipment as collateral." "Pretty standard," I said. "What's the twist?" "Scroll down," he said. "Look who co-signed." I leaned in and read the document Brian had pulled up. There it was, Erica's signature, tied to a $175,000 equipment loan. "She signed this before she left you," Brian said quietly. "But here's the kicker. She didn't list herself as single. The loan includes joint responsibility with her spouse. That's how they got better terms." I stared at the screen. She put my name on the line without asking. "Exactly," he said. "And that's not all. 3 business cards, a car lease, even the new commercial space, all co-signed, all tied to your marital assets." I stood and walked to the window. Outside, neighborhood kids kicked a ball across the lawn, completely unaware of the mess adults create. "She has no idea what she's done," I said, "and neither does he." The next morning, I met with my attorney. I laid every document on the table. "I want to move fast," I told her, "before they realize what's coming." She skimmed the files and nodded. "We'll file for emergency asset protection today. This loan fraud alone is more than enough to freeze everything." Later that afternoon, I drove to Cole Performance Studio. Sleek, modern, motivational slogans on the walls. Aiden's face was plastered on the entry banner. Inside, young people in high-end gym gear took selfies between reps. He spotted me quickly. Taller than I expected. Artificial tan. Over-whitened smile. The kind of man who lived for the camera. "You must be Mark," he said, extending a hand. "Erica talks about you." "I'm sure she does," I replied, ignoring the handshake. "We need to speak privately." His smile twitched, but he led me to a frosted glass room. "What can I help you with?" he asked, closing the door. I placed a folder on his desk. "This is every document linking you and Erica. Loans, leases, cards. All co-signed using our shared marital assets." He picked up the folder and flipped through it, his face draining with each page. I don't understand. These are just business agreements. They were approved using my income, my assets, and now we're divorcing, meaning those guarantees, they're gone." He sat back, lips tightening. "Erica told me you were wealthy. Said money wasn't an issue." "Money was never the issue," I said. "Trust was." I stood, paused at the door. "One last thing. When Erica moved out, she took a few personal items. Family photos. A pocket knife my uncle gave me. They matter to me." He stared at me, silent. "I'll see what I can do," he said finally. The next day, a courier dropped a box at my hotel. Inside were the photos, the pocket knife, no note. Later that afternoon, my attorney called with an update. The emergency freeze was approved. All joint assets were now locked down until the divorce was settled. I logged into my system. Erica had tried and failed to access our frozen accounts 17 times in 24 hours. She'd also attempted to open a new credit line using our home as collateral. Denied. Then my phone buzzed. Her name. This time, I picked up. "What did you do?" she snapped, voice cracking. "The bank's called in Aiden's loans. They're seizing the gym equipment tomorrow." "That's unfortunate," I said, calm. "You're out for revenge, Mark. You're ruining him just to punish me." I'm protecting myself. You signed off on loans with my name, without permission. That's fraud. We can fix this, she said, suddenly shifting to a hesitant tone. Just come home. Let's talk. More than 10 years together, and she still thought that would work. There's nothing to talk about, I said. The divorce will move forward, and so will the fraud investigation. Aiden's about to learn a hard lesson. I ended the call, then blocked her number. That night, I slept like I hadn't in months. Weeks later, I sat in a mediation room with my attorney. Erica walked in wearing an expensive outfit and heavy makeup, but the fatigue showed through. Her lawyer spoke. Be first. My client is willing to be reasonable, despite the aggressive tactics from your side. My attorney smiled lightly. That's good, because there's been a development. She slid a document across the table. The banks finished their fraud review. They've confirmed that Erica forged Mark's signature on multiple loan forms. She used their marital status to secure credit, without consent. Erica's attorney scanned the document. His face turned pale. We'll need time to review this. Of course, my attorney said. But you should know, this has already been sent to the state legal authority. This meeting is a courtesy. Criminal charges are already being discussed. Erica turned to me, wide-eyed. Criminal charges? Mark, you can't be serious. I looked her straight in the eyes. I didn't press charges, I said. The lender did. That's what happens when you commit loan fraud. Her attorney whispered something. She shook her head, panic rising. If Ms. Hall signs our proposed settlement today, my attorney continued, Mark will give a formal statement to the bank. It may help reduce the legal risk. No charges for the stolen property or the $118,000 transfer. Erica looked like someone realizing the fall had already begun. I watched the cracks form in Erica's expression. She had expected a storm, anger, maybe begging. She hadn't prepared for the consequences. The offer is more than fair, I said quietly. You keep the wellness center. You keep the car and whatever personal belongings are left. No alimony. But the debts? The ones in my name, you take full responsibility. She barely whispered. What about Aiden? My client isn't responsible for Mr. Cole's financial troubles, my attorney replied. But without marital assets backing his loans, we understand repossession has already begun. Erica said nothing. She picked up the pen and signed. As we left the room, she caught my arm. I never thought you'd fight back like this, she said. You always just went along.
That was my choice, I said, just like this was yours. I kept walking. I didn't look back. A few weeks later, I moved out of the hotel and into a modest house near downtown Cedarville. It wasn't luxury, just a simple craftsman home that needed repairs, the kind of place that kept your hands busy and your mind steady. Through mutual friends, I heard Erica had relocated to Aspen Ridge. Her social glow page was filled with mountain landscapes and cheesy quotes about starting fresh. Aiden's gym had been bought out by a fitness chain, and he'd moved to West Shore Bay. Neither of them mentioned what happened. People don't post their mistakes. One Saturday, Brian came over to help me mount new kitchen cabinets. Any word from Erica? He asked as we checked the hinge alignments. No, I said, and I doubt I ever will. You know, he said, pausing, you could have gone after her for everything. The fraud alone would have nailed it. I shrugged. What's the point? She's not my problem anymore. We worked in a quiet rhythm, measure, cut, drill. There was something peaceful about it. I'm thinking of getting away for a bit, I said. Maybe drive up to North Lake, spend a few days at the cabin. Dad would have liked that, Brian said. You haven't been up since he passed. That night, after he left, I sat out back with a glass of bourbon. The neighborhood was quiet. Just a distant dog barking, a kid laughing down the block. Nothing like the high-end world Erica had once demanded. This felt real. I thought about the last 10-plus years, How I'd let someone else shape my life. How I'd seen the warnings but convinced myself things would turn out fine. But deep down, I must have known. That's why I'd prepared. I didn't feel like I'd won. I didn't feel revenge. I just felt done. The next morning I called the office, told them I'd be out for a couple of weeks, no meetings, no spreadsheets, and backup plan needed. I packed the truck, locked up the house, and drove north. No destination, no noise, just the road. And for the first time in years, no invisible score to settle. And that's how it ended. Not with a fight, but with clarity. If you've ever had to walk away from something you once thought would last forever, I get it. Share your thoughts in the comments. What would you have done differently? And if this story made you feel something, hit subscribe, because next time, the truth might cut even deeper.